Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to stop by. I do appreciate it. Just to remind you, my guest this Saturday at the Intercontinental at Mozambique is the Ambassador Secretary General of the EAC, Dr. Richard Sesibera. He said more than 2 years ago at a previous Mindspeak that this is Africa's century. From Wikipedia, where I looked him up, he was born June 5, 1964, a Rwandan physician, politician, diplomat and civil servant, current Secretary General of the East African Community, appointed to that position by the EAC heads of state on the 19th of April 2011. Sesibera received his early education in Burundi. In 1984, he entered Makerere University Medical School in Kampala, Uganda, graduating with the degree of Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery in 1989. Later obtained the degree of Master of Arts in Liberal Studies from Georgetown University in the United States. He said the day he was appointed Secretary General, "I am committed to work for the East African people. It makes me very proud and courageous." Ernst & Young yesterday said East Africa, comprising Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda and Burundi, will be attractive partly because it is doing more than most other African regions to become integrated, thereby facilitating easier cross-border activity and attracting investors. Intra-EAC trade has been rising since 2002, since the launch of the customs union and subsequently the common market. Intra-EAC trade has increased from about $2 billion in 2005 to $5.5 billion in 2012. The geographical region encompassed by the EAC covers an area of 1,820,664 square kilometers, combined population of about 150 million. I put up a link on the website as to what Mindspeak is all about. Of course, it's held at the Intercontinental. We serve breakfast from 9:30. We start at 10. We've had some great guests this year, from Christine Lagarde to Dr. Titus Naikuni to Charles Ireland. I'm looking forward a great deal to hearing what the Secretary General's got to say. He really does have a bird's eye view on the EAC. I'd like to thank Charles Ireland of East African Breweries for an excellent dinner last night. I thoroughly enjoyed Charles's company and conversation, which ranged from a Chinese fellow in a remote part of China who turns out to be the single biggest buyer of Johnnie Walker Blue Label. One day, DIGO, they all decide to go and visit this fellow, see what and who he might be. And he speaks to them in Chinese, and it's being translated, and then he leads them down a street and down another street to a warehouse. And they're curious as to what might be in there. And in there are all the Johnnie Walkers he's been buying. And Charles said he was basically thinking that he was a speculator, believing that the price would go up dramatically. And it turns out to be a bunker hunt type of fellow, looking to put the squeeze and create a corner. I'll put up a photograph of the bunker hunts and a chart of silver, and you can see how they squeezed silver incredibly in that period. And I'll also put up my favourite photograph of Charles I took at a Johnnie Walker evening, and a link to his Mindspeak session, which was very inspirational. Home thoughts go back to Don DeLillo in Point Omega. We're a crowd, a swarm. We think in groups, travel in armies. Armies carry the gene for self-destruction. One bomb is never enough. The blur of technology. This is where the oracles plot their wars. Because now comes the introversion. Father Teilhard knew this. The omega point, a leap out of our biology. Ask yourself this question: do we have to be human forever? Consciousness is exhausted. Back now to inorganic matter. This is what we want. We want to be stones in a field. Political reflections, a photograph of the honor guards preparing for China's President Xi Jinping at Lyon Saint-Exupéry Airport, Xi is in France for a 3-day state visit. I like this photograph as well. It's called Power Shake. President Obama shakes hands with the EU Council President Herman Van Rompuy and the EU Commission President Jose Manuel Barroso in Brussels. Obama said, "This is not another Cold War that we're entering into. The United States and NATO do not seek any conflict with Russia. Now is not the time for bluster. There are no easy answers, no military solution." Newt Gingrich made some interesting comments on CNN. Said Putin has been in charge of Russia since 1999. He is arguably the most effective leader in the world today. The Obama administration's foreign policy, meanwhile, has variously offered Putin a reset photo op, likened him to a slouch like that bored kid sitting in the back of the classroom, and most recently uttered meaningless protests while he annexed the territory of a sovereign state. Monday's cancellation of the G8 summit in Sochi, Russia, was really the minimum that could be done. Of course, the United States and its allies could not go forward with the meeting as if nothing had happened. The symbolic, this is Newt Gingrich, tactical approach, which is the hallmark of the Obama foreign policy, is dangerous, delusional, and utterly incapable of understanding or coping with a serious leader like Putin. Indeed, there is a growing danger that the combination of strong words and weak actions will lead Putin to believe he can continue to incrementally rebuild the Russian Empire by gradually absorbing various pieces around the periphery. The Chinese, like the leaders of many countries, are very happy to see the United States once again embroiled in a fight which undermines American credibility, absorbs the attention of American leaders, and accomplishes nothing. It is very hard to see how a sanctions regime is going to seriously impact Putin. And I think that's a very interesting analysis, and I tend to agree with Newt Gingrich on this, which is a rare position for me to be in. Putin's latest dirty trick, leaking private phone calls, but it's quite interesting. In the last 7 weeks, intercepted phone conversations between Western and Ukrainian officials have mysteriously surfaced on the internet. US intelligence officials tell the Daily Beast these phone recordings are part of a deliberate Russian strategy to collect and publicize the private conversations of their adversaries, referring to the famous Victoria Nuland conversation when she said, "Fuck the EU." And then a Catherine Ashton conversation with the Estonian foreign minister, where Payet, the foreign minister, discussed a theory that the snipers who fired on demonstrators in Ukraine may have been anti-Russian provocateurs. The Republican chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Mike Rogers, said, "We see them engaged in counter-information campaigns. They are very aggressive. They are using old-style thuggery, cut your ear off KGB tactics, and they are using this leaking of collected information to their advantage." It is always an information war, but it's much more diffuse now, and I think I, for one, think that the American tone does not reflect this more diffuse world, where a less strident tone might reverberate more strongly. US oil boom shifts alliance as Obama visits Saudi king. When Barack Obama sits down with Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah, he'll do so knowing the US is importing the least crude in 2 decades, a shift changing America's strongest relationship in the Arab world. 5 years after Obama's first visit to Riyadh, the drilling of shale oil fields from North Dakota to Texas has put the US on the path to energy independence, weakening economic interdependence between the two nations as they work through disagreements on Syria and Iran. The global picture for Saudi Arabia has changed fundamentally as a result of the growth of unconventional oil in the US. Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Gulf exporters are turning their attention eastward, and that has an impact on how they see the West. Because of its emerging energy independence, the US may pursue policies that are not favorable to the Saudis. It explains partially the overture to Iran. For Saudi Arabia and other Middle East producers, the shale boom is accelerating the redirection of oil shipments toward Asia. China, which overtook the US as the world's largest oil importer in September last year, is becoming an increasingly important customer. China imported 53.9 million tons of Saudi crude in 2013, or about 1 million barrels a day, 28% more than in 2009. I'll put up a photograph of King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia and Barack Obama, and just mention, I think that's what that pivot is all about, is the ability to blockade the supply of this ever-increasing fuel requirement into Asia. West Africa on Ebola virus high alert was a tweet I found by the BBC. I couldn't resist the photograph. Instagram now has 200 million monthly active users, sharing 60 million photos a day, totaling 20 billion photos shared since it launched in 2010. Global research is asking, why was the Malaysian MH370 flight not detected by the Diego Garcia US Naval and Intelligence Base in the Indian Ocean? Fair question. The euro is at 137.92, the dollar index is just above 80 at 80.02, Japanese yen 102.21, the yen weakened 0.2% to 102.21 per dollar, having touched 101.72, which was the strongest level since March 19. Swiss franc 0.8850, pound much firmer, 165.77. And bear in mind, sterling has appreciated 10% in the past year and is the best performing currency amongst the key developed market currencies. Aussie, very strong lately, 0.9240, touched 0.9245, which was the highest since November 22nd. It's up 3.1% this month. Indian rupee 60.15, that's strong as well. South Korean won 1071.45. The Rial 229.58, and this is the strongest level on a closing basis since November 26. Egyptian pound 696.24, and I'll come to Egypt in a little while. And the South African rand is at 1068.97. The yen has strengthened 2.1% in the past 3 months. Dollar has lost 1.1%, disappointing the bulls. The euro has declined 0.8%. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index. Little change at 80.02, and I agree with Niall O'Connor, a New York analyst at JP Morgan, who says the dollar has struggled to extend gains after last week's Fed meeting, and I tend to agree with him. But he's saying resistance is 80.58 to 80.88. I'm not so sure. I think it's a little bit lower down. Australian dollar, this is the highest since November 22nd. I'll put up a 3-month chart of that. There's been a decoupling from China. Euro dollar 137.92, and we've come off the highs with around 139 and change, but I think it's pretty well supported. Gold 1302.715. I'll put up a 3-month chart of that. I think the 2014 high is already in. Crude oil popped above 100, 100.37 last. Highest settlement since March 19. I'm looking to resell it around these levels. Bloomberg is saying White House's sell Russian recommendation flopping. Equities are bouncing back in Moscow after President Putin's push to annex Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula sparked the worst standoff with the US since the end of the Cold War. And this is what I was saying when I said buy Russia, because the political noise had sent prices down to a ludicrous level. Coming to Africa, Africa has the world's fastest growing population, projected to account for more than 40% of the global population growth in 2030. Interesting article in All Africa about crude refining in Africa, the way forward, saying that a total of 42 refineries in Africa. Total capacity of 3,217,000 barrels per day. Major refining countries are Egypt with 9 refineries, Algeria with 5, Libya with 5, South Africa with 4, and Nigeria with 3. And it's an interesting argument saying that there are plenty more refineries on the way. The South African oil share is up 4.01% this year. It's been firmer over the last few sessions. Dollar rand, I'll put up a 3-month chart, 1068.55. We're coming close to sort of topside resistance. If we break that, we move very quickly again towards 10. In a nationally televised speech, Sisi appeared in his military uniform, saying it was the last time he would wear it because he was giving it up to defend the nation by running for president. He said he was responding to a call from the people. In his address Wednesday night, Sisi gave a campaign-style speech promising he intended to build a modern and democratic Egypt. He spoke of the challenges facing the country, including millions of unemployed and a weak economy. In an apparent goodwill gesture, despite the crackdown, he promised no exclusion. I extend my hand to all at home and abroad, all those who have not been convicted. There will be no personal score settling. Sisi warned he could not perform miracles in a country of 85 million that is steeped in poverty. I cannot make miracles, rather I propose hard work and self-denial. Bear in mind, the entire leadership of the Brotherhood is in jail. Morsi faces charges that could lead to the death penalty. And then a fellow called Hassan Nafar, a professor of political science at Cairo University, saying if Sisi doesn't have a real plan for reconciliation, he certainly will fail. I don't know if he'll be able to do it. I said a while back, if the equity markets had a vote in Egypt, General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi would actually get one of those impossible to believe 99.8% votes, because the stock market has rallied to a more than 5-year high. It's up 25.9% this year alone. I think a lot of Saudi and GCC support has gone into that. I'll put up a photograph of Mohamed Morsi and a 3-month chart of the Egyptian pound, which was last at 696.20, where it's been for a very long time. The Nigeria all shares down 7.75% this year. Nigeria's incoming central bank governor Godwin Emefiele said a devaluation of the naira would be devastating for the economy. This is an import-dependent economy. Devaluation is not an option, he said. Nigeria's reserves have declined 13% this year to 37.9 billion as of March 24. The decline in FX reserves is due to a speculative attack, Emefiele said. KFC is following Nigeria, fast food pioneer in African growth. This is investment banker Ebele Inunwa, moved to Nigeria's oil industry hub more than a decade ago. He was distraught by a lack of places that he could eat at. To tackle the problem, he raised $1 million from banks and friends to open a chain of fast food outlets called Kilimanjaro, named for Africa's highest peak in 2004. Now competitors, including Yum Brands, Domino's Pizza and Johnnie Rockets International, are following suit and opening outlets, while McDonald's Corp says it's eyeing opportunities in Africa's most populous country. Outside of the Nigerian business hub of Lagos, the fast food industry is seriously underserved, Inunwa said in an interview. There is so much more to bite out of. And indeed, KFC in particular is extremely popular. And I wrote about this on the 12th of September 2011 when I said Kentucky Fried Chicken makes the bull case for Africa. I'll put up a photograph I took around that time of the queue waiting to buy KFC at the Junction Mall in Nairobi. The kwacha, which slid to a record 6.44 per dollar on March 19, has rebounded 3.6% since Zambian policymakers scrapped laws to ease dollar shortages and took steps to reduce liquidity in the banking system. The kwacha is Africa's best performer since then. However, it remains 11% weaker this year, second only to Ghana's cedi among 24 currencies monitored by Bloomberg. The nation Zambia sold Eurobonds in September 2012 with yields reaching 5.16% that month. May have to pay as much as 9% to sell debt now, amid lower copper prices and a fiscal deficit. Zambia is a classic example of some where policymakers have been caught on the hop because they made incorrect assumptions about, rising revenues for a long time. Ghana Stock Exchange is up 11.38% in 2014. Portuguese living abroad have increased remittances home, up 9.6% to a total of 3 billion euros for the first time ever. But what was interesting is Portuguese-speaking Africa accounted for 316 million euros, up 13.6% in remittances from Portuguese emigrants. Interesting article on the FT about Kulchuk looks to Africa for new frontier and transformation. This is Jan Kulchuk, Poland's wealthiest businessman. He says he's invested $1 billion in Africa. It's not going to be easy, but the greatest successes are where the challenges are the greatest and where a lot of work is to be done. Rwanda may offer reduced tax rates soon for investors in energy, transport and logistics, as well as to fund managers and export-orientated businesses. This is the Rwanda Development Board, could be in place by the end of April. Proposals could see investment in selected areas qualify for reduced corporate tax, now set at 30%. And clearly it's the Mozambique model and it works, and they're going great guns. Mozambique says in talks with Rio Tinto over capital gains tax. Keep an eye on that news. Coming to Kenya, interesting article about how Kenya took on the International Criminal Court. This is in Global Post, saying that the crimes against humanity case against the president is on the verge of collapse. Regardless of the merits of the case, the lack of a full trial is bad news for both the ICC. Thousands of victims have been waiting for justice. Big victory for Kenya's current government, which both prosecutor Fatou Bensouda's office and foreign analysts have accused of working actively to undermine justice. It's good news for other nations' governments looking to beat charges as well, because inadvertently or not, the Kenyan government appears to have just written the playbook beating the ICC. Nothing has been happening in government except the effort to derail the ICC, said James Gondi, a human rights activist with the Civil Society Coalition, Kenyans for Peace with Truth and Justice. In the first year of the Jubilee government, alleged corruption has scuppered an election promise of free laptops for school children. Economic growth targets have been missed, and terrorists have launched a bloody, successful attack on the Westgate shopping mall, killing at least 67 people. All the while, government attention has been firmly on The Hague, where Kenyatta has won a string of victories, leaving the ICC damaged and its weaknesses exposed. That's correct. Kenya realized it could play this game at the international level through diplomacy, at the national level during the elections, and at the community level through deliberate targeting of individuals. Clark means that they've employed a multi-pronged process that included obstruction diplomacy and, critically, victory in the 2013 elections. Kenya very successfully tapped into the rhetoric of the court as a neo-colonial tool. That's a very saleable narrative regardless of whether it's true or not. My conclusions are the case against the president collapsed a while back. But as in this article they correctly note, repercussions may be felt at home. While Kenyatta looks set to avoid trial, his co-accused, deputy and political ally Ruto, has been in the midst of his since September. This was not the deal. They were supposed to be in it or out of it together. I'll put up a photograph of Kenya's fourth president, Uhuru Kenyatta, receiving a symbolic sword of power from outgoing President Mwai Kibaki on the 9th of April 2013. Bob Collymore told The Nation in an interview Wednesday that the mobile company is no longer interested in the $8.6 billion joint deal with Airtel Kenya that would also have seen it take over U-Mobile spectrum. We've pulled out of this deal, unfortunately. We can't waste more time waiting for CCK to say a word about this. It's been a month now. The regulator has said nothing about it. We feel the delay is too much, and for us the takeover is something that was time-bound. As far as we are concerned, this is the longest we can wait for the transaction to be concluded. And here, there are a couple of things that are unclear. Particularly, we can't understand why the regulator says totally nothing. Plus, we all know the term of the current board expires on April 2nd, which means we could be subjected to a longer wait. And I'm sure U-Mobile are even more unhappy. Samir Africa reported full-year profit after tax expanded 112.88%. Revenue barely changed. They're speaking that unit sales to export markets grew 27%. Retail outlets grew 17%. Yana brand unit sales grew 14%. But however, they booked a 255 million shilling gain from a property sale of leasehold land, and that was worth about 2/3 of earnings per share. The Nairobi All Share closed at a record yesterday again. It's up 6.103%. The NSE 20 is up 1.03% this year. According to the New York Times, some 22,000 elephants were slaughtered in 2012, and an average of 30 are lost to poachers every day in Tanzania. I'll put up a photograph of elephants that I took on the 1st of September 2013 when I visited the Amboseli. Leading Kenyan MP says homosexuality is as serious as terrorism. Aden Duale, the majority leader for President Kenyatta's ruling Jubilee coalition, was responding to a group of MPs demanding tougher laws. Can't we just be brave enough, seeing that we are a sovereign state, and outlaw gayism and lesbianism the way Uganda has done? Uganda has voted for life imprisonment for some homosexual acts. Duale, who speaks on behalf of the Kenyan government in the Assembly, said, "We need to go on and address this issue the way we want to address terrorism. It's as serious as terrorism. It's as serious as any other social evil," Duale said. As I said, the Nairobi All Share firmed just 0.179% yesterday to set a second consecutive lifetime high. I don't think we'll set one today, but we're still trending higher. The NSE 20 remains below 5,000. I'd like to see it above that level. And then the commentary is on the website if you go to have a look at that. Once again, thank you for stopping by. Hope to see you at Mindspeak this Saturday.